So Zohran Mandami, the mayor-elect of New York City, went to the White House to meet with Trump today. I want to give you the latest on this one because this really exposes Fox News, Donald Trump, and the Republican Party as being, frankly, really out of touch with the American people, really absurd and just frankly dumb. And I'll show you guys why. So first, these are the headlines that came out today. Donald Trump and Zohran Mandami meet in the Oval Office, okay? U.S. President and New York City's mayor-elect say they enjoyed cordial discussion about affordability crisis. And Trump really changed his tune because he's absolutely crashing in the polls. And frankly, the Republicans and Trump are losing badly because they're not addressing, right, that things cost too much, right, the affordability crisis. And so what Fox News has been trying to do all along is paint Mandami as being some sort of, radical left-wing person. You shouldn't listen to him, whatever. But if you actually sit down and listen to Mandami, he doesn't say anything crazy at all. In fact, he's trying to help regular people and talks like a normal person, whereas Trump and Fox, they speak on more on behalf of the billionaire class, which is kind of insane. Also on Fox News, they were covering, I guess the Republicans were trying to pass some sort of resolution condemning, socialism is what they call it. It's a misrepresentation, but it's what they call it. And they want to, try to paint Mandami. He's going to, take away all your freedoms and stuff like that. And it's just nonsense. This is the Wall Street Journal, right? Wall Street Journal then runs a headline, Trump and Mandami set aside differences during a White House meeting. You also have this, Trump commends victory of New York Mayor-elect Mandami at the White House meeting. And then this is Trump's own words, right? So Trump's really backing off here because, again, his poll numbers are crashing. Trump says, we've just had a great meeting, a really good, very productive meeting. We have one thing in common. We want this city of ours that we love to do very well. Okay? Very different than Fox News trying to paint Mandami as the devil, etc. Like Trump's really backing off here. Piers Morgan then says, this is amazing. Kudos to Trump and Mandami on coming together. We need more of this. Bloomberg then says, President Trump said he wants Zohran Mandami to succeed and would feel, quote, very comfortable living in New York, run by the mayor-elect. The men met in the Oval Office on Friday. Okay. And it was interesting. There was one question that Mandami got. I'll show you guys what he answers. So this is from Fox News. Just want to show you. Fox News says, just in, New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mandami sidesteps a question about a House resolution that overwhelmingly passed to condemn socialism. I guess, again, the Republicans are trying to make Mandami seem like a really, really bad person, basically. And then Mandami answers, I am someone who is a democratic socialist. I've been very open about that. And I know there might be differences about ideology, but the place of agreement is the work that needs to be done to make New York City affordable. And it's funny because someone had a comment on this regarding that post, and this is from Spooky. Spooky says, socialism in America. Police departments, fire departments, public schools, public libraries, military food and housing, Social Security, unemployment insurance, Trump's $2,000 tariff checks, Medicare. Gee, socialism is sure terrible. And the point being, though, is that depending on how you want to talk about said thing, it'll have very different connotations. And so Fox News tries to scare you on this kind of stuff. And I guess Fox News, they work on the behalf of the billionaires and Trump, and they want to privatize everything and basically destroy things like Social Security, just for example, or destroy things like public education. And if you rephrase it in these ways, people suddenly don't think the stuff Mandami is saying is so crazy. If you look at Fox News, though, this is what they're pumping today, is basically replacing all of you. This is literally from Fox News right here. I'll just show it to you. It says, NVIDIA brings AI robots and voice assistants to hospitals to tackle healthcare worker shortage. Basically, they want robots and AI to do the work of humans, opposed to, here's a different way to think about it. What if instead of, putting all this money in government policies to get more robots and AI, what if we put all this money in say, policies to support education and train American workers to do these kind of jobs? Just for example, it's a different way of thinking about things. And it's putting humans first. And I don't think that's a crazy thing to say, but it is what it is. If you want to read more details of, say, democratic socialism, these kind of things, you can. I just throw it up here on screen. But something I wanted to point out, it's funny because you just do quick searches and it's saying just examples. Examples in USA. In the United States, some democratic socialist policies point to existing government-run programs like Social Security, Medicare, or Amtrak, which are good examples. And I used to take Amtrak quite a lot, actually, when I was in USA. I would go from Philly up to New York City, and it's totally fine. Could Amtrak be cheaper? Yes, it totally could be, because it's actually expensive compared to, say, other places, but it works. And there's certain things that you just want to have to keep society functioning, Social Security, Medicare, etc. And I was also thinking about this, when you look at the stuff that Zohran says and the stuff that he wants, again, you can easily find the stuff on the internet. It doesn't sound that crazy. And I want to go over it because Fox News, they'll just try to put labels on people and say, oh, he just wants to take away your freedom, some sort of socialist or communist or whatever. And then it doesn't quite make sense because when you look at stuff Zohran wants, to me, it sounds reasonable. So, for example, universal childcare, okay? Provide free childcare for all children in New York City from 6 weeks to 5 years old. He proposes funding this through higher taxes on high earners and corporations. So the question I propose to you then would be, would you like healthcare to be affordable for your kids? and I'm pretty sure the average American's like, man, healthcare is really expensive. Wow, if you get me, cheaper healthcare, I'll go for that. What about this one? Rent freeze. Freeze rents for cities of 1 million rent stabilized apartments. Mandami aims to appoint members to the Rent Guidelines Board who will support the freeze. So basically, they're just saying rents are too high in New York City. And anyone who has ever lived in New York City, I lived there, rents are ridiculously expensive. I think like just to even get a decent place on your own, because most people, have roommates and stuff like that, maybe 2 or 3 roommates even. You could be looking at rents from anywhere from 2,000 upwards, like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, these kind of things. And if you're in New York City now, you can tell me what the most recent things are, but it's expensive, right? So, there's ways that like, how can we make this stuff work? Free buses he's proposing, which I don't think is crazy. I live here in Korea, and it's free buses for people over 65, which I think is fantastic. And it's just public transport, not just buses, but just public transportation, subsidized or free, helps everyone, right? In multiple ways. Essentially, like, just think about this: if you could remove car insurance, remove having to pay for gas, having to buy cars, just think how much money you'd save. I frankly just really, really like mass transit. I talk about it so much time. That's one of the big ones for me. City-owned grocery stores, affordable housing, minimum wage increase, tenant protections, all these kind of things. So, and you can debate whatever details, but this is the kind of stuff that he's talking about. It's this idea that he's taking anyone's freedom away or whatever is frankly insane. And then I want to talk about this, just different way of thinking about stuff that's not really brought up in American politics that should be, is when you guys look to your neighbors to the north, say to Canada, do you feel like in Canada they have no freedom and life is terrible for Canadians? Is that what the average American thinks? Is that what Fox News is like? Oh my God, we don't want to be like Canada. And when I look at this stuff, I'll just go quickly. This says healthcare. So they have universal single payer system, right? Private versus public. So whereas like in USA, it's all about, the system is all about, keeping people sick so that you can profit off sick people. It's America, essentially what it is. And you guys know this, like they'll deny your coverage or whatever. It's just all for profits. Other things in Canada, like employment insurance is, I guess, pretty good. But you guys let me know if you're in Canada. I'm just going to quickly. Welfare assistance, child benefits. What else we got? Public housing, regulated rental costs. Okay, this is just in Canada. How about this? Centralized purchasing and access to prescriptions, talking about, pharmaceuticals and drugs, trying to keep costs down, again, in Canada. Subsidizing cultural subsidies, natural resources, this kind of stuff. And just going through quickly. It's hard to go through all this stuff. It's just going through quickly because I want you guys to get an idea. Here in Korea, we have the same kind of situation, right? You have a health insurance system, affordable care, you got severance pay, national pension, high school's free school lunches. And that was actually debated on, what age should we do lunches and on. And then also too, which is different than say Canada and Korea, you have to have military service for men. It's different because, North Korea is a actual threat. So I'm just being frank with you guys on that. And so, yes, you do want a trained populace there for that. Regards to, say, healthcare, universal care, you can easily find this stuff. Among developed countries, the USA is the only, and that's the way they state it, the United States is the only high-income country where substantial portion of the population lacks any health insurance, right? So basically, you don't really have universal coverage in USA like you would in other places. USA is the only country in developed countries that's like that. And, the list goes on. One of the reasons why USA is different than, say, other places is because the billionaire class have a lot more clout, and if they can control the media and the discussions, then suddenly everything changes. So, for example, this was in the Washington Post today, and I think it's an important juxtaposition to show how, you can change the dialogue by talking about different things. Headline then, how billionaires took American politics, right? And this is a spending chart Okay. So if people like Elon Musk have a, bigger voice than others, then the dialogue changes. So look at this. I mean, you can see it for yourself. So in 2000, federal election donations by the 100 wealthiest people, and it's like almost nil on this chart, right? There's some, but when you go to fast forward to say 2024, suddenly it jumps up to like over $1 billion, and just you can see the changes. And essentially, what it was is we had the Supreme Court ruling. You guys know this one. What's it called? I sometimes I forget the name of this stuff. Please write in the comments. But it's where they are saying like corporations can have quote free speech. We also have the political action committee thing, and essentially what it is I'm still not supposed to give a huge amount of money to individual politicians. So to get around that, I give money to political action committees who are not supposed to work with politicians, but there's a bunch of corruption with that. So basically, we need to change our campaign finance situation in USA, because it's just if you allow people to do unlimited money and stuff, like say Elon Musk trying to buy elections, and you guys know this, and the whole, heard all this outright lie by doing these lotteries. Do you guys remember that stuff? And largely, this is actually interesting. It says here, federal election donations from the 100 wealthiest Americans by party. So they tend to go more Republican. You can see here on the chart. When you ask regular people, and you could talk a lot about the campaign finance situation in USA, but my opinion, we would really need to remove money from politics to really help the situation. So one example that you could do that they do here in Korea, which is really interesting, they make the amount of time that you can campaign really short. I think it's like a month. And they do that in other countries as well, because when you make the time short, then you don't need quite so much money to run. And then it's not like you're constantly inundated with political advertising for a year or 2 years or whatever it is in America. It's a really different thing. There's just too much money in politics in USA, basically, because my opinion is one person, one vote, which I don't think is a crazy thing to say. Here though, we asked 2,500 Americans how they really feel about billionaires, and I was looking through some of the data, this stuff, and you can look at it for yourself. Look it together here. It says most Americans say billionaires spending more money on election campaigns is bad for the country. Okay, so the question is do you want people like Elon Musk to dump a bunch of money to affect elections and such? So overall, very bad and somewhat bad. That adds up to, I'm doing the math here, about 58% of people would say that. Democrats would tend to say it's more bad than Republicans. And it's a complicated topic in the sense that where I don't want you to get the impression that just because you have money, it's all bad, and people have money, you're bad, and blah, blah, blah. It's not like that. It's just more like, do we want someone who has more money to basically be able to buy off politicians, right? So for any of these discussions, you want to rephrase the discussion so we can have an honest conversation about this stuff. And, if you want a true democracy, one person, one vote, and one person's voice shouldn't just be drowning out all the other people's voices. But, in a capitalist society, that's how it works. And with Fox News, then they always steer the discussion into painting anyone who wants to go against the system as being awful. So for example, just go back to the free bus thing. For just the average person, if you make, buses and subways or whatever public transit affordable, you'll like it. Regular people will like it. I mean, it just, I'll give you another example. When I lived in USA, there are some cities who provide free transportation for elderly people or people who are disabled because they can't, drive so easily. And one of the best ways you can support freedom for people is to help them with mobility. And what's crazy is for Fox News and, the Elon Musk or whatever, they try to paint helping regular people as taking away people's freedom, when it's frankly the opposite. And I'm a big believer in public transit and helping people get to where they need to go, be it hospital appointments, visit family members or whatever. And if you can do that for free or subsidize it, it's fantastic. So it all depends how you talk about the conversation. So here's an example then. Buying favors, swaying elections, having undue power, self-serving agendas are the top reasons people say billionaire election spending is bad. And these are all the reasons why you wouldn't want Elon Musk controlling elections. There's a bunch of lists on here. I'll go through it. So why do people say that they don't want too much billionaire money in elections? Billionaires buying influence and favors. Okay, that'd be one. Buying or swaying elections and votes, undue political power, self-serving agendas, right? unfair advantage, disconnection from average citizens, corruption and bribery, erosion of democracy, make elections unfair, waste of resources, right? So these are some of the reasons why. And you go through some more of the stuff, and it's really interesting. Here, Americans are more bothered by election spending by billionaires and corporations than labor unions or middle income voters, right? So the question then, if you look at it here, is like, okay, if all this money is coming into politics, does some money bother you more than others? Because you could make the case, like, and that's what Republicans try to do all the time, is like, I hate labor unions, I hate workers. Labor unions have too much sway, and we need to get rid of unions. I always thought that's a strange thing for any regular person to really, really hate the unions. I just always find it strange because and every union is going to be different, but in just the general concept of a union in whatever industry that you're in, designed for workers to collectively bargain so that you can have fair wages and address your concerns, opposed to individually doing it on your own, and then your employer has more power than you. And so I'd like to hear people's thoughts on this stuff, but this is sort of what we're talking about here. Here's more. Americans are more likely to say billionaires have negative rather than a positive impact on society. And it's very interesting because in the Republican thing, in Fox News, or if you watch any Elon Musk fanboys and fangirls, they like worship money. It's really strange, and they worship the rich people. And what's strange about it is that for these people who claim they love freedom and stuff like that, like worshiping the wealthy who maintain a system to hold people down is frankly absurd. and they try to make it act like that you're going to benefit if Elon Musk gets his $1 trillion pay package. Like it's absolutely absurd. I don't know what to say. And other than, I guess the easiest way to describe this is that if you understand that people like Elon Musk and his billionaire buddies can manipulate the government and the system to favor them. So for example, let's say they want to build a data center in your city, and they take all of your power and they take your land and pollute your air and water, and you have no way to stop them. And then they have the AI to take your jobs away, and again, you have no way to stop them. Like, how's that good for the regular person? It's not, right? Isn't it obvious? But Fox News, they try to portray the robots and AI as replacing you at, say, healthcare jobs as being a good thing, and there's that. And then when you look at, say, Trump and his people, they try to act like Mandami is like this evil, person, whatever. But this is what the Trump people were trying to do. I guess they reversed it already because it got so much backlash. Yesterday, they announced the Coast Guard that they were going to make it so, I guess, swastikas and nooses were not hate symbols. Seriously, we're talking about swastikas today. And then they reversed that because it got so much pushback. And it's like basically the Republicans, like if you just look at what they're doing, they push again an AI agenda. They lick the boots of Elon Musk. These things, they push right wing stuff because essentially the way that you get regular people to go along with this stuff is you just say, oh, all your problems are because of basically black and brown people, and racism is our way forward. That's what they're trying to get you to do. And most Americans are rejecting it, as you can see clearly in the polls. But it's crazy that it's still there. And so I can't change racist people, because some people are going to be the way they are, and I can't change that. So that's why I focus on the money stuff. And the simplest way to put it is like, do you want a system to where your kids can go to public school, it's free, they can get an education? Do you want a system to where, like, if you're, cheated by Elon Musk and he advertises a car to you that doesn't work, or let's say, for example, the car wheels just literally fall off, and then you can't, sue the company or have any sort of way to protect yourself? Like, is that the system that you want? So it's weird that, Fox News or whatever, and always talk about Fox, but, that side of the aisle is like always basically worshiping money. It's strange. And then they call themselves Christians. It's the whole thing is bizarre. So, that's what it is. I think in American politics, what we need more of is, less screaming and stuff like that. And I know the way the system works. And if you watch YouTube, the most popular YouTubers just scream nonstop. I know how it is. But that's America. It's hard to change that culture. It's all basically professional wrestling kind of stuff. And I can scream too if I really want to. Today I don't feel like doing it. Most days I don't feel like doing it because I think it's frankly dumb. But that's where you are in USA, and you have to change the dialogue to just talk to people reasonably about stuff. And It's hard to compete though in an environment which people are so used to TikTok-y kind of communication. And you'll see it in the USA. I'll explain it really clearly. Literacy rates, right? Basically, people can't read and people have short attention spans, and it really affects the culture in deep, deep ways. So I know it's hard to talk about this stuff because people get offended when you mention this stuff, but sometimes I just want to tell you flat out the truth because it is what it is. So that's what's going on. I do appreciate your time, and I'll catch you on the next video.